experts at Harvard have recently reviewed that there are two main reasons people aren't getting jobs today. And the first reason is you are not landing job interviews. You are applying for a bunch of jobs, sending out your resume, and you believe that you do have the skill set required, but you aren't hearing back. I hate to say this to you, but the problem is your resume just sucks. Yikes. And the other reason, according to Harvard Business Review, is you're getting interviews, but they don't go anywhere. If you ask me, that's much less of a problem. Hey everyone, welcome to this channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you common resume mistakes that you can avoid to help you land your dream job. I know crafting a resume can be a daunting task, especially when you have to apply to multiple jobs or you are still in the beginner phase of your career. I understand it can be quite challenging and very stressful, but there are some common mistakes that if you avoid, it will take your application to the next level and help you stand out from other applicants. Earlier this year, I was hiring for some role for my business and I asked people to send the application to me. Some of my viewers actually did apply for the roles I had open, and to my surprise, some of the resume, I just can't hire some of these people. Like, your resume is the first thing a hiring manager or a potential employer would see before they decide to hire you, and your resume has to stand out. There has to be something that is catchy. It has to do something to the hiring manager or to the recruiter for them to even call you back. And I spoke to some recruiters as well, and they shared some common mistakes that I want you to avoid before you apply for your next job. The first mistake, which sounds like it's very obvious, is grammatical error and spelling error. Like, come on now. It's very easy for you to sign up on Grammarly or put your resume on Google Doc just to scan through and use the spell checkers to make sure that there are no errors in there. Sometimes you find people misspelling things, you find things like double spacing. Some of these grammatical errors and spelling issues can affect your chances of even getting shortlisted. So make sure you take some time, even before you apply for the job, have a first glance, have a second glance. If you can get someone else to take a look at the resume for you, have them do that to make sure that there are no spelling or grammar errors in there. A simple typo can make a negative impression to an employer that you're not someone that pays attention to detail. So you want to make sure that you're checking that. Next is highlighting duties instead of accomplishments. I know for most of us, when you go to work, there are chances that you do a lot more than what you actually accomplish. You want to make sure that you're using action verbs toward your accomplishment. Don't just highlight all of your duties in your resume. No, make sure that you're selecting the ones that are applicable or relevant to the job that you're applying for. Add relevant work experience, be it internship or volunteering experience, especially if you are still in the entry-level phase of your career. Avoid including irrelevant information that doesn't showcase your skill set, it doesn't put you out there, it doesn't even help your application. Remove them. Some of the action verbs I like to use are things like transform, strategize, initiated, spearheaded. These are some simple action verb that shows that you're someone that can take initiative and you're not just an existing member of the team. So use those action verbs toward your accomplishments and say it in a right way that would seem attractive to a potential employer. While speaking about experience, I also find that some people put their education above their work experience. To be honest, for most of the resume that I've seen that are attractive, or for most Canadian resume style that I've seen, it's very important for you to put your work experience above your education, just because some employers don't particularly care about your education. Yes, they might want to know for some specific role, but your work experience speaks volume. So put your work experience above your education. Your education can come right after your work experience. Next is to be mindful of the kind of email addresses you use. You'll be surprised to find that some people still use email addresses like hotsexy2@yourbabygirl.com or hotsexy@gmail.com, something like so. Those dumb things. Just find email address that is your first and last name. If you had to add a 1, add a 2, add something to it, just make it make sense and use that. You want to make sure your email address is as simple as possible, can be easily remembered, and doesn't come off as unprofessional or inappropriate. Next is to tailor your resume to the jobs you are applying for. I know that this might sound like, bruh, I'm applying to a bunch of jobs, how do you want me to keep tailoring all my resume to every job? Listen, sometimes it's better for you to focus on quality than quantity, especially if you are already at the growing stage of your career. You are not just in your entry level stage anymore. You are now trying to pick the kind of jobs you are applying for. You have to focus on making sure that the package is done right. Make sure that you are tailoring your resume based on the job description or the job requirements. Present your work experience to highlight the achievements that you have from your prior work experience, and tailor it to the role that you are applying for, or the job description for the one that you are currently applying for. Trust me, a one for all resume would not work in this day and age. Absolutely not. Sometimes some of the experience that you have are not relevant to the job that you are applying for. That your high school job, that job you did after you graduated from uni, sometimes might not be applicable to the role that you are currently applying for. So just take it out. But if it's still applicable, just make sure that the part you are highlighting in the work experience is focusing on something that would benefit your chances for the potential job that you are looking out for. My recommendation would be to have like a master resume, then tailor it to different part of your resume. So here and there, every time you want to apply, make changes to it. Have multiple CV or multiple resume for different job application. Sometimes you'll be surprised to see that somebody is applying for the job of a social media manager, and they are using the resume that they have as a content marketer to apply for the same job. They are two different jobs. You want to make sure that you're updating your resume and tailoring it to the actual job you are applying for. Next is to make sure your resume passes ATS check. I'm going to give you guys a trick. Go on this website called jobscan.co. It's free for you to sign up. You can get the pro version, and I think they give you for about 2 weeks. But the secret is, if you have multiple email addresses, you can use them to keep getting free 2 weeks, you know. And I think it also renews every month. You get some free check every month as well. So once you get to use the ATS, that's jobscan.io, what you need to do is copy and paste the job description from the job that you are interested in applying for and upload your resume there. It will tell you where there is not a match, like how many percent match your application is or your resume is for that job, and you can see where you can make changes to. It also helps you highlight those parts that maybe they are not detailed enough, or maybe you need to change it. It would help you do that. So that's a tool that I've referred to a lot of students, a lot of people that are looking for jobs in Canada, and it has worked incredibly well for them. So start using it. If you are not familiar with it, if you've never tried it before, this is your sign to start. In the same vein, make sure to include relevant keyword and phrases into your resume. There are some buzzwords out there that people overuse in their resume. I get it, I understand why you're doing so, but recruiters and hiring managers are probably tired of seeing those things. What they are most interested in seeing, and what would also help the ATS system, that's the applicant tracking system, to select or shortlist your resume, would be the use of the keywords. How many times did you use those keywords? How many times did the phrase come up in your resume? So those are the things that you want to prioritize in your resume. And buzzwords, you need to make sure that you're avoiding them as much as you can. Which brings me to the next point. Use quantifiable metrics. State by how many percent have you helped drive sales, how many percent has things improved since you joined the team, or when you joined the team, how much improvement have you made, how has your suggestion or your initiative driven growth in the team, how have you transformed it. So like sometimes you can use metrics like percentages, you can use numbers, you can use like general terms, but just make sure that you are using some metrics that can be backed up, just in case they have to prove it. So don't say things like, oh, you improve sales in the company by 200 or 400%, and then they go online to go check that company, and it turns out that company is reporting a loss, but you said you've helped driven profits or sales. I mean, sales and profits might be different, but you want to make sure that the kind of metrics that you're using makes sense in a way. And even if you feel like, oh, the metrics that you have, maybe you say you've driven performance upward by 23%, and you're feeling like 23% is really small compared to something like 95%, trust me, you're better off using 23% that still makes sense and can be relatable or can be accepted, than saying something that is over the top and wouldn't make sense, if you understand what I'm saying. So make sure you're showing how you have added value to your previous roles and how you are an outstanding member of the team. I know that sometimes people shy from saying things like, when you're especially doing interviews, you don't want to sound like you're not a team player, so you start to say, oh, my team and I did this. Yes, you have to identify yourself as a great team player, but at the same time, say those things that you did that are outstanding in the team. right? I helped my team do this. I spearheaded. You understand what I'm saying? So those are some things that you need to make sure that you're highlighting that you've done for your last company. To make your job search a whole lot easier for you, I have created a Canadian resume standard template. In the description, it's linked there. Go ahead and grab yourself a copy and see what it looks like so that you can now tailor your resume following that standard. Next is to remove personal information. This is mostly relating to a lot of immigrants, a lot of Nigerian immigrants in particular that I've seen, because those are the people that I'm kind of close to. So I get to see some resume and I see people putting things like picture, you put your age, you put your date of birth, you put your gender, you put your religion. It's like, why? Like, you don't need all that information. Personal information is not required in your resume. Take all of those things out. Even your address, you don't need to put your address, your full address on your resume. So you can put things like the city and the province. You can put maybe at best your postal code, but don't put your full address in your resume, because it's also you putting yourself at risk. There are a lot of job scams out there and you don't want to be a victim of identity theft. So having someone random on the internet Google your resume from a job search platform and they find it and they have your full name, they have your full address, they have your email address, they have all of this information, all this historical data about you, your previous workplace, is just too much. So make sure that you're not putting your full actual address there. If you think about it logically, one of the main reasons why you shouldn't be adding all this personal information to your resume is you don't know who the potential hiring manager can be. There might be someone that they are discriminatory, and when you add all this information, for example, you're putting your age there, they might just look at it that this person is too young or too old for this role and they just don't shortlist you. Also, if you provide things like, oh, maybe you're married, or you put a picture of yourself there, what if they are going to racially profile you? You don't want to do that, right? So you want to make sure that you're only providing relevant professional information that would help them shortlist you or move forward with the application. No excessive details or unnecessary information. Next is inconsistent formatting. This in a way ties back to making sure your resume passes the ATS system, because if you have inconsistent formatting where you are using like calligraphy fonts or cursive fonts, those fonts that are not really legible or readable, those fonts do not pass ATS, and that's because those fonts are not available on all kind of ATS system. But when you use basic fonts like Arial, you use Times Roman. I don't like Times Roman for whatever reason, but I mean there are some recruiters that wouldn't mind, and Times Roman actually does work. So Calibri, those are some fonts that are very simple and basic that would most likely pass the ATS system. Some people also have like this heavily designed resume columns. Some of these things, when they upload your resume to the ATS system and they pass it, once it gets to the next stage, all of those designs are gone, and where you put your objective or where you put your skills and all these things are now scattered in the resume, and it doesn't make sense anymore to whoever is reviewing it in the second stage, or maybe the hiring manager or recruiter. And when they see it and they're like, what's going on with this resume? Your resume has failed the applicant's tracking system test, and they'll just move it one side and move on to the next resume. So you want to make sure that you're not putting excessive formatting, excessive design. Make sure you're consistent. If you're using 12 font size, continue with 12 font size. If you use bold in your header, continue with using bold in your header. Don't switch things here and there, changing your font, changing format and moving things here and there, please. You don't want something as basic and simple as that to be the reason why you are not getting shortlisted. Next is to make your resume concise. I know this is also a very hot topic as to how many pages should your resume be, whatnot and whatnot. I know it varies based on the level of experience that you have, but what I would say is this: if you're still in the entry-level stage, or you just graduated from school, you're still an intern, your resume should probably not be more than 2 pages. And why is that? If you have like some jobs that are not relating, some job experience or work experience that are not relating to the current job that you're applying for, you can take them out. Aim for simplicity and make sure that your resume is focused on the details that is required for the next job you are applying for. And lastly, which might seem so simple, like how does that even happen? Don't forget to include your contact information. Sometimes you find that people include just phone numbers without email, or they include email without phone number, or they even have an email there, then it's not the correct email address. Like, how did you even make that mistake? So make sure that you're including correct contact information. Sometimes I usually recommend to include a link to your LinkedIn profile. That's the URL. Don't just add your LinkedIn name. They are not going to go on to go be searching for you. They don't have that time, and so many other people might be bearing the same name as you. So just if you want to include a link to your URL on LinkedIn so that they can easily click it there, it is totally optional. But if you have a simple profile that is well optimized, I recommend that you should include your LinkedIn profile URL. Anyway, these are some of the common resume mistakes that I've seen, that I've heard, that I've come across. If you're a recruiter or a hiring manager, or you have also spent some time in the job market and you've seen so many other mistakes, or you have done this mistake and you've learned from them, please share in the comments so that others can learn and avoid making those mistakes to help them land their next dream job. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.